Good morning, everybody. Given the circumstances, we're going to skip the normal formalities. Terribly sorry about TCR last week. It's September. I've been swamped. I meant to do a big to-do surrounding this, but here we go. I sat down with your good buddy Hemrawc right before Go Day yesterday, or last week, excuse me. And again, I planned to bookend it and make it like a big thing, but I just ran out of time and I just got swamped. So, without further ado, here is in its entirety my sitting with Hemrawc, and the rest of what I had planned we're going to do next week. So stick with us. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio, and a big thank you to all the supporters for being patient with me in a difficult month. All right, cool. Just want to make sure you know when you are and are not being recorded.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I opened up a few of the sites just to see what else is going on in the gaming climate. I know this is going to drift towards the handhelds, because that's like the hottest thing, is the handhelds. But I've noticed with my kids have been interested in playing like the old Pokemon games. And the problem is, if you use one of these handhelds, then you're in a bubble. You can't trade Pokemon with an Ambernick. And that's been an issue. But I don't really see a fix for that anywhere. So, what is your thoughts on the current climate of the market as it is now? Or like what's just on the horizon?
Current climate of the retro handheld market?
Right. Because there's a number of machines that are like, oh, hey, the new, Odin's coming out, and the new, RG 350 723 is coming out, et cetera.
Yes. So, my opinion is we're entering a new generation. Now, the number of that generation, I'm unsure of. This is the third or the fourth or what have you generation. But there are several, some of which are high-profile releases that are right on the horizon. So most people in this community have heard of the Odin. That one's getting major hype.
Mm-hmm.
The other one that's getting major hype is the Steam Deck. Then we have maybe some lesser-known ones that are out there. So the RG 552, which is I think Ambernick's sequel to their, what are they at now? The one that they have a metal
351M, RG 351.
Yeah, 351.
And there's a metal and a plastic one.
Yeah, so that one has been incredibly successful from what I've seen for Ambernick, and has really put them on the map, has really garnered them a lot of respect in this community.
Mm-hmm.
And so now with a sequel coming out, I think you have people that are hyped for that, but unfortunately it's like trying to release a PS1 game during the same month as Final Fantasy VII. Somebody's going to get overshadowed. I don't know who that's going to be. One that I've been interested in has been the Powkiddy X18S. So I know Powkiddy and what?
I have to look this up while you're talking so I can see what what did you say is X18X?
X18S.
Got it. All right, go ahead.
Yep. And I know, well, at least it seems that in some retro handheld circles, Powkiddy is a dirty word. I was like, oh, Powkiddy, well, we save that for the kids.
Really?
Yeah, I get that feeling sometimes. Now, that was probably more like 6 months to a year ago. I think they've really improved their image. But for a while, they've released some mediocre, subpar type systems. But this new Powkiddy X18S, it's a sequel to the X18, which really didn't get off the ground that much. And the X18 looks very much like a DS. It's got the same form factor, the clamshell design. And the X18S is going to be a successor with a touchscreen, HDMI out, a faster processor. I believe it's got more RAM. And as far as putting things in an emulation perspective, it can probably emulate up to GameCube. So that's quite a step up, and I think that's the way many of these new handhelds are going. But for whatever reason, the X18S has just not gotten as much notoriety as the Odin, as the Steam Deck, and even the RG 552.
You got a couple things
So
in there
we'll see.
that I think are worth addressing. First, let's talk about Powkitty. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Did you have more?
Well, I just wanted to preface the whole X18S just so people understand that it's a long time coming. So, as many of you are aware, there is a chip shortage. And Powkitty announced this new updated handheld probably back in around January, December 2020-ish.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even on their website like a big banner advertisement, Powkitty X18S coming March 2021. And March came and went, and there was like nothing out of Powkitty. They just sort of took it off their website. And I felt like I was one of the only people asking. I was like, what happened? I was looking forward to that. What, is that not going to happen?
I remember you talking about this.
That just a few days ago, Powkitty on their YouTube channel said, oh yeah, it's coming out. We got it ready. We're like towards the end of production.
Do you know what this looks like?
That kind of surprised me.
Did you ever have one of those like portable DVD players with a little foldable screen? That's what this looks like to me.
I never had one, but yes.
But you know what I'm talking about, though, right?
I don't think it's that big. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Maybe not quite that big, but it's definitely chunkier than a DS. I mean, it kind of has the same
it's gonna be a little bit...
same like clamshell style, but this looks like a Husky Boy for sure.
It is a Husky Boy, but it's small potatoes next to a Steam Deck.
Oh,
like
jeez.
You could use the Steam Deck as a weapon. That's like borderline portable. I'm like, is that really portable?
I don't think it is. I'm not pulling a Steam Deck out, while I'm waiting for my wife to try things on. No, I'm not doing that.
That's like trying to pull out a Lynx like back in the 90s. The Lynx? That's huge. Does that even fit in a backpack?
I don't know. It's one of those things where if you got it in your pocket, everyone knows it's in there,
I don't think you can get that in your pocket. Well, maybe if you're wearing one of those like 90s cargo things, you can probably do it, but...
The old Jinko pants.
Outside of that...
With the enormous pockets.
Yeah. The 90s called. They want their pants and their Atari Lynx back. Oh, wait, that's a Steam Deck? Oh, never mind.
You can keep that. I never thought... to circle back to what you were talking about earlier, because you said a couple good things that I wanted to touch on. I never thought that Powkitty was really like had a negative connotation, but they definitely made like middle bracket hardware. Like the two systems I have, the one that you gave me is a perfect example, right? You gave me a V90. That is a well-received machine. People like that thing, but
I think that was probably the first machine where people were like, oh. It's not always junk.
What were they doing?
They just kind of assumed.
Okay, because I have no idea what was going on before then.
Well, to be honest, it was the V90 that first really clued me into this company. I was like, Powkitty, what? And I think since then they've upgraded a lot of their devices. So I'm kind of scrolling through their website and I'm like, where are their old stuff? I see the V90. I'm not sure what came before that.
Yeah,
I am no expert
in
this field.
I'm still looking.
So sorry. Well, just since you're still looking, I do want to mention that another device that Powkitty put out that really, I don't know if shook up the community is the right word, but it definitely turned some heads, and that was the RGB 10 Max. And I think you've seen Retro Gamecore, right?
Sure.
Channel. Yeah, so they review a lot of these retro handhelds. And the guy on that channel, Russ, I believe his favorite retro handheld is the Powkitty RGB 10 Max.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even more so than his Amberneck. So I think that's saying something.
I'm bringing it up now. Yeah, I have seen this thing around. That's another wide boy. Oh, what do you think of the Soldier Boy games? Come on, man.
Oh,
You got to get yourself a Soldier Boy system. He owns Atari now.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. I wonder how that's working out for him. Yeah. I'm not sure I really want to get into that, but I mean, this is what I would say. If you want some honest answers about Soldier Boy, go to Retro Dodo. Go to his YouTube video.
I saw that.
Or his channel, and he actually does a serious, like, hey, let's sit down and talk about what's really going on with Soldier Boy, because things can get a little confusing. And again, I'm no expert. I'm just pointing you guys in the right direction, because Retro Dodo seems like he's got his head on the right way and knows what he's talking about. So I do kind of trust what he's saying. And I think there's some half-truths to some of this Soldier Boy stuff. But, I'm no expert.
Nor I. But
so I'm just pointing you into someone who may know more than I do.
If you can't trust Soldier Boy, who can you trust? I mean, really.
It's a dark, dark world we live in.
The new Palkity A20 is 2021's fake but better-looking analog pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean that's one of like a half dozen or so newer consoles on the horizon.
I like the idea of Android based, to be perfectly honest, because one of the problems with these machines is that ultimately, being emulation machines, they're designed to play games for platforms that are all but completed and over with, with small exceptions. I mean, there's still NES games coming out on itch.io and whatever, and but if you get yourself an Ambernick or a Palkity or something like that, chances are you won't be excited for the new game coming out for it. Do you know what I mean? But I think if the hardware architecture is a little bit more open, then maybe that might change one day. Which is why I would like to see them get away from this. What's the thing that?
OpenDingix?
Yeah, OpenDingix. I'd like to see OpenDingix get replaced with Android.
Yeah, there's pros and cons, and what I've heard from the people who know more about this than I do, is that when you're running Android, you're losing a percentage of your CPU, maybe even your RAM, just to running Android in the background. So running other operating systems, from what I've heard, can improve performance potentially.
Okay.
But with that said, Android already has the apps. People have already been working on Android for what, decades on the emulation scene. So you kind of plug right into that once you throw on Android. And then also, again, don't know a whole lot of details about this, but I think there are some compatibility issues with the newer Android versions. And if you try to put out a system with Android on it, from what I understand, you're not supposed to put out a lower version of Android. What are we on, like Android 11 or something? But
something
Android
like that.
10 works better. Yeah, but again, from the foggy information that I vaguely recollect, Android 10 is better. But as a company, you can't make a system that runs Android 10. Like, I don't know, somehow Google get involved. I don't get that, because, man, they're putting, like, Nintendo intellectual property on their stuff. Like, no problem, no one cares. But, ooh, don't you dare put an old version of Android on there. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
No, it doesn't. It's
that's
just
kind of what I've heard.
I just don't see, like, as being a developer, if I was a developer and I wanted to make a game for a handheld, I don't see my in anywhere. And that's my big gripe with what is it, the EverDrive, or not EverDrive. Those are the flash carts. Evercade, the one that you actually have to go out and buy carts for now. How would a developer get on that system? Do you know what I mean?
Kind of.
Like,
yeah, like it's easy. It would be easier to plug into Android than to try to go some separate route that only has a small audience.
Right, and there's my problem with OpenDingix, because if you look at like the community around it, it's not much. I mean, there's a few people who have bought a machine and they go to the old style forum and sign up or whatever, but I don't see a lot of people like developing OpenDingix apps anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff has stagnated. But I don't know. But maybe
Yep.
you know.
Well, with this new generation, we're getting a whole new chipset, right? So I think many of these consoles have been stuck on the RK3326 chip.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the same chip that's in Hemrawc and some of these Palkitty devices. And you can only push it so far. You can only optimize it so much until you've reached the pinnacle, and you can, you can't. I don't know if it's even feasible to run, like, say, PS2. That's PS2, GameCube. That's like the next thing everybody's like, oh, we got to be able to emulate this stuff. And I think this new generation will probably be able to take care of that.
Mm.
And we won't be asking ourselves, can this run Bloody Roar 2 at 60 FPS? We won't be talking about PlayStation games anymore. That'll be almost taken for granted. That'll be like asking, can Super Mario Brothers 3 run on it?
That's a weird thought.
It is.
But that's where computers are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure what initiated this whole retro handheld popularity. It seems like it should be a pretty niche thing. Especially now with COVID, you think people aren't traveling as much. People are working from home. They have their computer right there. Why not just play on that, or play on their Switch or their PS4 or 5 or whatever it is? But instead, now I want to sit on the couch and play on a 3.5-inch screen where I'm just chugging along with Final Fantasy VII or something. I don't know.
That's true, but we're also getting older. Like I mean, you're a parent. As being a parent, it's very hard to find time to sit on the couch and play the game. But I can bring, a portable device into the bathroom and find my game time, and there you go. And so, COVID be damned.
Yeah.
Even at home, there's a use for portable gaming all of a sudden.
Yeah, I mean, you have a point. I've been playing Final Fantasy from Game of the Month like 2 months ago on a portable device, and I'm still chugging along. Went on a bit of a road trip, brought it with me. I got the airship.
I never got the airship in the original Final Fantasy.
Those Final Fantasy games, I don't know if you get this experience, but and maybe it's not true with all of them, but I think with some of them, you chug along and you're like 15, 20 hours in, and then all of a sudden it just kind of like opens up, and it just seems like a richer experience. It's like, oh wow, now I can go anywhere I want. I'm not limited, or the limitations are much less than they were before. And that's really now what I've just recently experienced with Final Fantasy 1. Now again, this is like my third time playing it, but I don't know, it's just this great feeling. I'm like, oh yes, I got the airship. And what I've tried to do this time around, because the first 2 times I heavily relied on game guides, game facts, things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, I'm really trying to make it a point. I was like, I'm trying not to use those. I've used it a few times because every once in a while I'm like, I'm pretty sure I got what I need to go, or I got what I need from this dungeon, or I think I need to go here, or not 100% sure where to go, and I don't feel like I want to spend an hour running around trying to figure that out. So I'm like, okay, I'll just look that up real quick. But I haven't been sitting there with like a guide in my hand and my handheld. So, it makes it a richer experience. It's more enjoyable. There's this fun in just exploring, and not because I don't have the game memorized by any means, but I'm like, wait, I don't know exactly where to go. I'm just gonna start poking around in these dungeons, and who knows, I could like turn the corner and all of a sudden the monsters are 3 times stronger than me and I could die. Or like I could get in a fight and then just barely make it and get all this experience and then just barely make it out. I'm like, yes, yes. And then you make it back to the inn, you rest up and you're like, okay, now I know. I can't go there yet. But I didn't get a game over. So that's been really fun. And I'm also playing a hack. So I'm playing the mod of balance.
That's right. You told me about
awesome.
that.
The mod of balance is awesome. And to be honest, I don't think I would have really dove in, or maybe I might not have played it at all had it not been for the mod of balance. So the mod of balance you can find on romhacking.net. It's a hack of Dawn of Souls, the Final Fantasy for the GBA.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently the GBA version was really easy, or at least easier than the NES version. And some people saw that as a fault. And so the thinking behind mod of balance is to make it just as hard, if perhaps even harder than the NES version. But on top of that, they have expanded the job lineup. And that's the thing that I like the most. So now, instead of, how many jobs were there originally?
4.
Was it 6? 4? Oh, there's got to be more than 4. So there was the warrior, there was the white mage, black mage, red mage, and monk and thief, right? So 6?
Oh, okay.
I think it was 6.
Yeah, I really don't remember now.
And now, so now they've got all sorts of stuff. Like they have just completely wiped the board with the old things and have made brand new classes. And so they've also eliminated the upgrade. So like halfway through the game, you get upgraded. So they eliminated the upgrade classes. So you don't really get upgraded, you stick with the same class, which again, that's fine with me. They did that so they could add even more classes to the options. So I'm sporting a Paladin.
Mm-hmm.
So he's essentially like a tank, and as his name implies, he also has some low-level white magic. So I got my Paladin. Next up is my Battle Mage. He's similar to a Black Mage, but he can actually take a little damage, and he can deal some good physical damage. But he's probably not as powerful as a true Black Mage from the original Final Fantasy. So his Black Magic's not that great, but hey, he still has plenty. He can do a lot. Love my Battle Mage. Then after that, I have what's called a Master. It's kind of like a monk. He can do a lot of damage with just his bare fists. He's really my DPS guy and doesn't require a lot of expenditure. Because that's another thing they really changed with the mod of balance is everything is incredibly expensive.
Mm.
It's like Final Fantasy in 2021. There's just crazy inflation. So
why
you do all these exactly. you do all these battles, and you're like, yes, I have 500,000 gil. You get back to town, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna buy this weapon. I'll buy these 2 spells, and oh wait, I'm all out of money. Like everything is so expensive. So it really makes you think about what you need and what you don't need.
Mm.
So, and I like that because it makes it more strategic. So, and then my last guy is a Sage. So the Sage is the squishiest of all mages. Really can't take much damage at all, but he can learn every single spell in the book. They balance that by only allowing him to learn 3 spells per level. So, although he can learn any spell that's possible in the game, you can't necessarily learn every single spell for that level, if that makes sense, right? There could be like 10 different spells for level 2, but you only get to choose 3 of them. So again, there's some strategy that goes into it. And that's just been a whole lot of fun. Just cruising around in Final Fantasy 1 with a little bit of a twist. And I'm hoping to just finish that game and perhaps move on to Final Fantasy 12 International Edition, which is what I should do. I started that months ago, like back in October of 2020.
What do you play that on?
I play that on the Switch.
Okay.
I'm still a fan of the Switch. Don't regret that purchase. For me, it's probably the best console of this generation. But again, it's the only console I own, so
Nah. I
don't have much experience with the new Xbox or PlayStation 5 or 4 or whatever. But I really don't have any interest in buying those.
Yeah.
If anything, I've thought about buying an Xbox 360. I'm not even kidding. I got really close to buying one. So I had one years ago, never got into it, and it was because it was during a time in my life where I had very limited free time, and even now my free time is pretty limited, not
Mm-hmm.
as limited, but don't have a ton of it. And I wanted to play Lost Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of my roommates way back in the day having that game, and I was like, that looks really cool. You know, it's like Final Fantasy. It was made by some of the same people that made Final Fantasy. I was like, it's like Final Fantasy for the Xbox 360. And I was like, I want to buy a 360 and get that game. And then another game, I had both of these games, but again, I just never got into them because I didn't have much time. And that was Cold Sep 360.
Mm-hmm.
And that is becoming an expensive game. And that's, are you familiar with the Cold Sep series?
No, not at all.
Okay. So Cold Sep is like a mix between Magic the Gathering and Monopoly. That's probably the best way to explain it.
What?
It's it's a collectible card game, and each level has. Well, I assume each level is different. I haven't played it that much, but it seems like each level has a different map, or a variation of perhaps the same map. And so the map is made like Monopoly. They're like these little grid spaces, and then you land on them, and you can fight monsters that are included in your deck, and you go around and you take turns against the AI. And,
Okay.
and then you like collect cards, and I think you can use money to purchase more cards, like in-game money, not DLC. Although maybe they have DLC now on Cold Sep for PS5. So yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like a cool little niche game that I would like.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Uh,
Weren't you the one like
yeah, so-
back in the day at one point who got really into like the Xbox Live indie scene back when you could get like a game for like $1? Wasn't that your
the
thing
only
for a
game
little while? Because
I'm
I
not sure if that
remember
was me or not, because
I remember distinctly because you got really mad when you discovered that that you have to be online to play the indie games that you buy, and you were like, ugh.
but that could definitely be me, because I mean I remember playing a few indie games on the 360. The one that really sticks out is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. That
Right.
game was awesome.
Okay.
And then that game got like ghosted because I think they took it off the 360, and like maybe you could buy it on the PS Marketplace, or
It's back now.
but now it's back. Now it's back full force. Like I think you can even buy like a physical version off of whatchamacallit. What's that company?
I don't know. eBay.
There's a company that specializes in retro releases. No, not eBay. What am I? Man,
What's
I'm
something
kicking
else they
myself.
sell?
Well, so what they do is they take these niche games or like indie type games that only have been released digitally, and they partner with the developers and say, hey, we're a company that specializes in releasing Switch games, and we have the manufacturers, and we have all this and all these resources. So can we pay you this fee to take your game and then re-release it? Oh, limited run games. That's the name of it. I'm sure there are people listening to this podcast that are just like screaming in their microphones or in their car saying, limited run, limited run.
I gotcha.
But it's limited run games. Yeah. And I think they've really taken off in the last few years. And they've plugged into this culture of like, how should I describe it? It's very much what retro gaming is becoming, like fear of missing out, I guess.
I hate that. Yeah. And then they use that to drive their marketing. I can't stand it.
Absolutely. And they're like, well, we're only going to release 1,000 of them, or limited run. So you better pre-order it before it goes out. It's going to cost you $60. Oh, better yet, you can buy the physical deluxe slam down edition. It's gonna be great. There's only gonna be 50 of them. It's gonna cost you $500, but you get this nice thick manual. You get a few posters. Sonic the Hedgehog will come over for your birthday. All this crazy stuff, and people love that. They love that stuff, for the lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really hate that that's kind of what retro gaming has become. Because I come from... What got me into it was the, or at least part of what got me into it, was the thrill of the hunt, and that you could go out, like yard sales, pawn shops, Goodwill or thrift shops, and there was a reasonable chance that you were going to find an NES game for just a couple bucks, and it could be a really fun game that you could actually go home and play.
Because they were plentiful, right? Yes,
Yeah, they were plentiful, and no one cared. Like, it was a super nerdy thing to do, and I was fine with that. I was a super nerd.
Yeah.
And then, and I think what really, really changed it, or at least one of the big modes of change, was YouTube. And when YouTube really started taking off circa 2010, and people were like, oh wow, this is cool. And that's when you had scalpers. I'm not kidding, for some people it became their job. Where their job is literally to go out and find these games and resell them. And I mean, I don't want to like criticize people necessarily for doing that. I mean, in a way, I guess they're providing a service, but I don't know. I hate to see it turn into that, where it's just like this whole money thing. But whatever. I don't know. I don't buy games like I used to.
It's okay. Here's the thing. The actual physical games are costing a lot because of this. I feel like that's a natural progression, and yes, it sucks, but it's the natural course of things. There's more people who are interested in them than there are actual items. Where I have a problem is when this is done artificially, and that's what limited games is doing. The only reason why we're gonna print 1,000 of them is because I know 2,000 people want them. Well, you know what? Keep it. I don't want it. You know what I mean? And it's even worse when Nintendo did it with that. What was it? Their like Battle Royale Mario game that was only available for like 4 months or something like that. And then it just vanished. Why would you make a digital release only available for a short period of time? There's no reason.
Well, it was like Xenoblade. Did you hear about the controversy with Xenoblade?
No, what happened with Xenoblade?
This was years ago. This was back when like it first came out. So Xenoblade was a big game in Japan, the way I understand it, right? It's a Japanese RPG.
Okay.
And I suppose it's like pulling teeth for some of these developers to bring it over to the US. They're like, why would we go through all that trouble of translating it, which I'm sure is expensive, and then marketing it to a North American audience that may or may not want it? But I think part of it was fan driven, and they convinced the company that owned the rights to Xenoblade to bring it over to the US on the Wii. It was a Wii game, right? And I guess they just didn't want to risk a lot of money, so they only printed, I don't know how many, but it wasn't a lot. And what was going on was the game quickly became worth more than the MSRP.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big controversies, and I could be remembering this wrong, so people of the internet, take this with a grain of salt, correct us in the comments or write in an email, but from what I remember is some game shop stores got in trouble because what they would do is, they would get the game from the distributor at the distribution price, which is even underneath the MSRP, and then instead of putting it out new, they said, nah, we're not doing that. They opened them up like they were used, and then they sold them as used because they could make more money, because they were worth more used than they were new, if that makes any sense. Because the MSRP was, I don't know, like 50 or 60 bucks, but if you wanted to try to buy one off of eBay, even if it was used, it was going for like 100.
Stuff like that makes me want to just leave the hobby altogether. I'll just go read a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, books are nice.
Yeah, books are nice. I would recommend Shadows of the Empire, if you haven't read that one.
I have not.
Yes. Or if you want to get political, sorry, won't be that political, but they just came out with the Afghanistan papers. I read the little free sample that they give you off of Kindle.
Oh yeah.
Which it's actually it's a hefty sample. Like, I I think they give you enough to read for like an hour. So I mean, you can get kind of into it. But it was interesting. Interesting. It's a timely read. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's neither here or there. That's not game related. But,
not game related. But you know what? It's not being artificially inflated in price. It just costs what it costs.
No, it's not.
And that's okay.
No, it costs $15. Yeah. That's one thing that's kind of nice about digital content. And really and truly, I like digital content that I can control. If I could take every single video game that I owned and could have it available digitally, with no DRM, that I could put on hard drives and back up, it could throw on a Powkitty or whatever, I actually would prefer it that way, because games take up a lot of space.
Yes, they do.
And they deteriorate over time, especially if they're in the CD, DVD format, especially CDs. So, I don't know. I'm not really big into physical, but I understand why people like physical, because they have like full ownership of it.
Sure.
Yeah, or now, you're getting into like digital stuff, and like, well, you had this like user in licensure agreement that said you would only play it on this particular console, and you don't actually own the content, you just have it available, and well, it just seems...
The alternative is to maintain a data warehouse, which is a lot easier now than it used to be. It's like I threw down $100 for like a... What is this? How many terabytes does this thing have? 5 terabyte hard drive. And you go through your GOG collection, and you keep all your setup files in a carefully curated folder. Because that's what happens. It's like, oh, we had to pull such and such from the library or things like that. And I'm not picking on GOG in particular, because they're usually pretty good about that sort of thing. But anybody who does digital distribution has to deal with rights, and rights change. They're not static.
That's true.
And so you become a digital hoarder. And
which is a lot cleaner than a physical hoarder.
Yes, that's the thing. I can still walk across my floor.
Exactly.
Which is nice.
Exactly.
Oh, speaking of digital hoarding, I at the same thrift store that you and I went to when you were in town before. I went there again with my wife just yesterday, and I got a desktop PC for $20 that actually worked, which I'm pretty stoked about.
It was complete. It was complete?
Yeah, I popped it open in the store, and it had a hard drive and it had RAM. And the RAM was mismatched, which to me said, okay, the last person who owned this was probably a computer dude. This was somebody's beater machine.
Yeah.
And it fired right up, which was super cool.
That's awesome. Around here, I know Goodwill, they will not sell hard drives or like USB flash drives. Anything that had media on it, they typically don't sell. So that's why I was a little surprised, like, oh wow, the hard drive was included.
Yeah.
I take that back. I think they, perhaps at one point in time, they did have these like computer centers where they like wiped and then reinstalled Windows 7 or something. But they didn't just have like, because I know what thrift store you're talking about. They just didn't have like these computers that are just thrown in the back of the store that you can kind of dig through. Everything was much more curated and regulated, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I like that.
Yeah, I was
stoked
about
it. You can just go in, pop open the computer, and take a look. I mean, my Windows XP machine I got on Craigslist. Got it for like $20, and then I got a $20 video card and put that in there. Like, this is one of those like old Dells. It's a Dell Optiplex.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of those. I'm sure it was in probably a school or a library or something. It still has a sticker that says City of El Paso on it. So yeah, so it was not a gaming machine more than likely, and then I just threw in a video card and boom, it could play.
It still wasn't a gaming machine.
Oh no! Oh, come on, man. It could play all the '90s stuff and a lot of the early 2000s stuff.
I got you.
Games I could not play on anything else played on that thing.
That's awesome.
The original Medieval Total War, I had a lot of trouble getting that to play. Like I think I tried it on Vista, maybe even Windows 7, like compatibility modes, would not work. But this Windows XP machine boots right up.
That's pretty awesome.
Like that's the way I play Civilization now. I turn on my XP thing. Yeah, I love it. It's the best like $40 investment for my gaming needs. And then on top of that, I don't know. I was just being super nerdy, and I bought a new. I figured out what was the max like CPU processor it could have, and I found that online again for like $20, and so I replaced the CPU. But I didn't really notice a performance change. Yeah. Yeah. So instead of a Core 2, I guess it's like got 4 cores in there.
Yeah, this is definitely a Core 2. This is a Core 2 with a small form factor, which I've never worked with. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the same thing. It's a small form factor Core 2. It's like
does yours have a floppy drive? Because this one does.
So, it has a space for the floppy drive, and I looked into it. So this one, again, it was made by Dell, and you could buy various parts. And in place of the floppy drive, what they did is they put a SD card bay, so it's got all these different cards you can put in there.
Okay.
Like MS Pro Duo, SD Mini, MMC. I'm sporting a CF card in there, and so I basically use that as an extra hard drive.
I'm familiar with the SD card bay. I have one in the tower that I built. They're nice.
Awesome.
It makes it so that you can use old digital cameras really well.
Yes, true. So I actually thought about buying the floppy disk drive, but I was like, the SD card bay is a little more practical because, like I said, now I'm using that as a hard drive because I think the hard drive it came with is pretty small. So yeah, awesome. I'm glad you picked up another computer. What operating system is it running?
So there's a sticker on the front that says running Windows Vista, but when you actually fire it up, it has Windows 10 on it. And the previous owner had it password protected, so I'll have to put a new operating system on it, which is fine. I don't mind that at all.
What are you gonna put on it?
I don't know, because my knee-jerk reaction was to get some Linux going, just to get it to fire it up. But I have to put some thought into it because it might be worth it to go like really old and get like, I don't know, Windows 98 or something just to run my old CD-based games. I don't know. I don't know. It depends on if that floppy drive works, then it might be a game changer because we've talked about doing floppy drive projects together.
Oh yes.
You know.
Yep. Hey, I'm still up for that because I have a USB floppy drive that works fine for the most part. I guess it doesn't always. Sometimes I wonder if it's the disk or the drive. But every once in a while I get one that just doesn't work. But most of the time it works.
Yeah,
I'm actually staring at my flop. Oh, go ahead.
No, I enjoy the stuff that we came up with when we were going over like floppy drive type stuff. I don't know. So I thought there was a lot of potential there, and I don't have one on my main rig.
Yeah. So this one came with a floppy drive.
Yes, it looks like an old business machine. Like there's one internal to it. So I haven't actually tested the floppy drive yet because, of course, I got to get an operating system up and running. So it could be dead because a lot of those old drives, I mean, you'd put a disk in them and you'd hear them cranking and it would just be gone. That's very likely to be the case. But I don't know. It's still fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, this is a tangent, and then I'm going to get back to the floppy disk. So are you planning on going to MagFest 2022?
I can't do 2022.
Oh, okay.
Because you're gonna be in town, right? Aren't you going to MagFest 2022?
Well, if you're definitely not going to go, then it puts a damper on me going because I'm like, wow, half the reason I'm going is because you're going. But I don't know. I haven't decided. I was planning on it. And they haven't opened up for tickets yet that I can see. I'm on their website right now.
I was kind of not impressed the last time I went to MagFest. I thought the best part about it was that we were all together, which is the whole part of why I was interested in starting like TigerCon, because I thought we could do the same thing ourselves for cheaper.
I did like playing Magic.
Yeah.
And And playing a $10 game, you know, draft, that's pretty good. Or was it $5? Was that $5 draft?
I don't remember, but it wasn't a lot. I
But
remember.
it was cheap.
I remember
Yeah.
it felt like it was, worth what I paid.
Yeah, absolutely. That was cool. I don't know. I like it. I like the floor, the show floor. Even if it's just kind of looking around, even if I don't buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
I like the panels. A few of the concerts were pretty good. Really enjoyed not cartoon. Why am I blanking on their name?
Descendants of Edric.
You know, I like that band. I just didn't feel like that set was as I worked it up. You know, like in my mind, I'm like, this is gonna be awesome, and it was just okay.
Yeah, I listened to them after that. We all went our separate ways, and I went home. I turned them on, and I was like, they're good. What happened?
Exactly. Yeah, I have one of their CDs, and for a while there, I listened to it a bunch.
Yeah.
Great, like, it's all based on video game music, but it's like heavy metal. It's really good stuff. And they're from Austin, Texas, so not very far away from where I'm currently at.
Right.
But no. It was... Why am I blanking on their name? Skatoon Network.
Yes. Okay.
Skatoon Network. That was the best performance there, in my opinion, that I saw. That was amazing.
I would agree. That was pretty awesome. They did a good job.
Yep.
That's a big band.
They did. It was. Very big band. But sometimes you need a big band if you're playing ska the right way.
Indeed.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So
I haven't
you're
really
not going for sure?
not for sure. I don't know if it's for sure or not. I had been kind of thinking I'm not going to go.
It's because of COVID, primarily?
No, no. I mean the ticket prices were
you don't
doubling
wanna go.
every year, and I thought, and I didn't think it was worth it. I would rather us do our own thing. I don't know.
But we lucked out where we stayed. We had an awesome place for like very little money. That was the best decision.
They were so good.
Because for the amount that I paid that first time that I went where I slept on the floor, I could have bought that entire Airbnb for the weekend. It was totally worth going for the Airbnb. That was a lot of fun. Especially that one. It was like designed for gamers.
She must have gotten get the MagFest crowd coming through there. Not just MagFest, but whatever convention.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of like Comic-Con type stuff going on over there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd hate to say it, but I kind of have to pull the plug now. I'm getting texts that
Sure.
I need to be places. But
Oh, no problem.
But yeah, that's what I got. So I don't know. You still doing PAX?
Cool.
Don't you have? What's the one down south that you're doing?
I would love to do PAX South. From the last time I checked was like, I don't know, a week or two ago. They haven't announced their dates. It's gonna be theoretically it's PAX South 2022. I can't remember when it usually happens because I haven't been to PAX South since 2017. But I really enjoy PAX South. I think I enjoy MagFest a little better, but maybe that's just because of the people. Like it was awesome to hang out with you and Darabka. Whereas PAX South, I more or less go by myself.
Just go by yourself. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes a big difference, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
I've done MagFest by myself, and it's been kind of lame in the past sometimes.
I could definitely see it being lame going to MagFest by yourself, for sure.
Yeah.
But hey, yeah. Let me know if you're up for PAX South, man. You got a place to stay.
Much appreciated, brother. All right, I'm going to pull the plug now.
Yep. All right. All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man.
Fun.